Hello everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. Massive thanks to Dr. Harlan Cloter, Nashad Khan and Mary Teferi for organizing the second Cape Winelands Knowledge Sharing Festival, and secondly for providing me with an opportunity to speak. I have very limited experience to speaking to such a large and distinguished crowd, so I hope you won't come to regret it. I visited South Africa for the first time only 2 years ago. I've had many opportunities to come back, and I genuinely have really fallen in love with your country. The people are incredibly warm and welcoming. Thank you, Nashad. And your country is stunningly beautiful, especially this part of South Africa. Being a passionate rugby fan, and Harlan has mentioned this as well, I wish you guys weren't as good at rugby. And especially, I think Paarl has a lot of the blame to carry for this. But please remember, and this is really, really important, Rassie coached in Ireland before he coached South Africa, all right? He coached in Ireland for 2 years, and I personally commissioned this very scientific, highly respected academic study, which determined that he gained 92.7% of all his rugby knowledge while he was in Ireland. 92.7%, right? And not only that, he also took Felix Jones, who was your assistant coach during the World Cup, who you've just gotten back. He was at Munster, he was doing a great job, but Rassie pinched him. And you have Jerry Flannery. So while I could really congratulate you on winning 3 World Cups, I think a lot of it's down to Ireland. Just quickly on this as well, and the slide is disappearing. At LinkedIn, we share the goals and visions of the Cape Wineland Knowledge Sharing Festival. We see LinkedIn as a knowledge sharing platform. Our number one goal is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. We want to make a difference at scale. Our North Star is to have every worker, every student, every company, and every learning institution on the platform. Now that might seem ridiculously ambitious, but we're making pretty good progress. We have 1.1 billion members, which is around 30% of the global workforce, which is estimated at 3.5 billion people. We have 70 million companies, which is around 20% of the 359 million estimated companies. We are a big data organization. We create 5 million data points every minute. To Seamus's point, we have unique, real-time actionable data, but I believe hand on heart, we use this data in a really mutually beneficial way. Our value is members first, and an example of and without our members, we cease to exist. We are nothing without our members. And an example of this is using the data powered by 1.1 billion members. We can see the fastest growing jobs, we can see the most in-demand jobs, and we release content to meet that need, and we use the LinkedIn.com platform, I hope you can hear me okay, to curate content at a very high level. We shared this data before. LinkedIn has 14 million members in South Africa, which apart from being number one in rugby, you're also the number one country on the continent of Africa from a LinkedIn penetration perspective. But there is a long way to go. My previous market that I was working for was the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a population of around 18 million people. We're completely crap at rugby. England beat us 118 points to 0. And honestly, we actually played well. It was remarkable. But in Holland, out of a population of 18 million people, there are 12 million people on the LinkedIn.com platform. Their entire talent pool is digitalized, which is a huge economic benefit. We've heard from Mary. She found her first job through LinkedIn. I found my first job at LinkedIn. And I've been at number of events in Africa where young people have come up to us and say, we saw your banner, I just wanted to let you know I found my first job through LinkedIn.com. So increasing this number, digitalizing your talent pool, will be a huge economic benefit. It will help you drive foreign direct investment and attract companies to come to South Africa and particularly the Western Cape. So why I'm here. I'm here to talk about how AI is transforming the workplace. But before I look forward, I want to look back a little bit. It's roughly 5 years since the pandemic started. We went into lockdown in Ireland more or less 5 years ago. I think many of us experienced personal loss, and all of us have witnessed and experienced significant disruption. The pandemic has altered the world of work forever. I think a lot of positives can come out of this as well. When the pandemic hit, the hours on LinkedIn Learning increased by 1 million hours from 1 week to the next. Organizations and employees had to shift very quickly from working in an office-based environment to working fully remote. We saw courses on using digital tools, remote working, home productivity. Later on during the pandemic, when it became clear that the pandemic was here to stay, we saw that HR officers, L&D leaders were becoming chief mental health officers at their organization as people struggled with work-life balance, depression, anxiety of COVID. And then subsequently, most organizations are now hybrid organizations, which brings new challenges. And now what we see, the new disruptor is AI. Every single conversation we are having with our clients, and I wish I got paid €1 for every time I heard the word AI or spoke the word AI, is about how LinkedIn is embedding AI into our solutions to make them more user-friendly, and how LinkedIn Learning can help our clients upskill their workforce, future-proof their workforce, so that their organizations can thrive and survive. And we see 3 transformations shaping the future of work. We see transformation of work, we see transformation of workforce, and we see transformation of workplace. The transformation of work are the technological shifts with AI and generative AI leading to the redefining the execution of work. We see skill-centered organizations. The pace of skills is so fast that organizations are hiring for skills and not necessarily diplomas. And what this has meant is that the workplace has transformed. Oh, it's okay. The skills are needed so rapidly, this has meant that organizations will now, to survive, will have to foster a culture of continuous learning. To quote Mahatma Gandhi, live as if you were to die tomorrow, but learn as if you were to live forever. So if we look globally, we see that 76% of global businesses are using generative AI and have seen significant time savings. 60% of global businesses are using generative AI for automation. It's reducing the menial tasks that our employees have to do. 54% are using it for augmentation, simplifying the processes with which they work. And 70% are using it for the ideation, using generative AI to improve innovation and creativity. What we see today is that 88% of C-suite executives' #1 priority in 2025 is to help their organizations use AI in a more efficient manner. And 80% of executives believe AI will kickstart a cultural shift where teams are more innovative and more creative. And we often measure productivity and how quickly you can do things, but what is actually is much more important is how well you do things, the quality of your work, and the creativity behind those ideas. When implemented well, AI is a very powerful tool that unlocks new thinking and new innovation across all types of organizations. In fact, companies which are using AI solutions are thriving and growing very rapidly, and 70% of Fortune 500 companies are using Microsoft Copilot to foster that creation and to make more time to sit back, to think strategically instead of focusing on menial and more repetitive tasks. If we look at 2 of these buckets, if we look at the transformation of the workplace, the pace of skills are changing very rapidly. 70% of the skills used in most jobs will change by 2030. with AI emerging as the main catalyst. We have seen a 6% increase in the last year of jobs listing AI literacy on the LinkedIn.com platform. The share of job posting on LinkedIn mentioning ChatGPT skills has increased 21x since November 22. 84% of LinkedIn members are in occupations that could leverage generative AI to automate at least a quarter of their routine tasks. So the data is very clear. Organizations will need to evolve rapidly to survive and thrive. And then we come to my personal thing. The reason I joined LinkedIn was for LinkedIn Learning. When LinkedIn contacted me originally, I didn't respond. They called to contact me again a couple of weeks later, and they clarified why they were contacting me, and they said it was about LinkedIn Learning. And I said, what the hell is LinkedIn Learning? I'd never heard of it. And this is about 7 years ago. So I took a look at the platform, and then I became very eager to join the organization. So learning is something that's very close to my heart. The pace of skills, as I mentioned before, are changing rapidly. Organizations will need to foster a strong learning culture, will need to create an environment where their employees can upskill, where they can invest in their careers, and where they can build sustainable jobs. The good news is that 80% of professionals want to learn AI skills. I think in all honesty, you probably don't have a choice. It's here to stay. And 70% of organizations are prioritizing learning and upskilling initiatives in 2025. But not only do we see that organizations are focusing on AI, what we're also seeing is that there's a real focus on people skills, making sure that we can differentiate. There are things that AI can do very well. There are things that AI cannot do as well. So what we're seeing is that there's a real focus on organizations building a people-centric culture and creating the environment where their employees, their leaders can work on emotional intelligence, creativity, storytelling, things that AI are not as good at. And if we dive a little bit deeper into those buckets, we can identify four trends. We can see a focus on cognitive skills. We can see a focus on interpersonal skills, self-leadership, and digital skills. Cognitive skills, everything from critical thinking to communication, mental flexibility, interpersonal skills, developing relationships, managing teams, effective teamwork, self-leadership, self-awareness, entrepreneurship, and then digital, having digital fluency, which is a challenge. I think there is a gap with the digital literary skills we see in South Africa compared to some of the other countries we work in. And what I think the outcome is, and this is a quote from Alvin Toffler, who was an American writer, businessman, and one of the most respected futurists. And he said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And he's a futurist. He said this in 1970. Most professionals, so there's an opportunity here. Most professionals, most organizations have not yet fully embraced AI. 32% of organizations are not using AI at all. 31% are exploring AI. 26% are experimenting with it. And there's various reasons. The reasons for not using AI is the culture. There's not a strong culture of learning. There's a lot of resistance to change. There's question marks around data and compliance. 31% of organizations are exploring it, but the leadership is not aligned. They have concerns. They don't have the tools. The 26 that are experimenting have some leadership alignment. They have some tools in place, but they don't have the right processes. And only 11% of organizations are fully integrating AI. Their leaderships are fully behind this. They have the tools to work in place, and they have strong generative AI processes. So there is a real opportunity here. But as we have seen, 80% of executives are focusing on AI. It's their number one priority in 2025. So while the opportunity is here, organizations will have to move fast and move rapidly to take advantage of this. I think probably in the audience, I'd imagine there's a lot of people who are concerned. I'm certainly concerned to a certain aspect about AI. How will this impact my job? How will this impact my children's jobs? So I think it's important that we develop the skills to build sustainable jobs, to future-proof ourselves and our employees. Make no mistake, AI is here to stay. But I think that's what I wanted to leave you with as a positive note, but it's also a quote with some sage advice. And this quote is from Eric Brynfelson, who's a fellow at Stanford University. And his message is very clear. AI won't replace managers, but managers who use AI will replace managers who don't. So it's a very clear warning, but it's also a positive note. And that was it.
Thank you so much, Martin. You can stay right there. Okay, so we're going to keep Martin on the stage right now. We want to open the floor for questions and answers. I see it's 17 minutes past 10 at the moment. If we could keep this Q&A going with you till about 10:30. But we keep our questions short, hopefully, because we need to go for a refreshment session at 20 to 11. So Martin, the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes. Then we're going to break. Thank you.
Oh. Good morning, my name is John, and I just want to ask the following question that one of my colleagues put out to his students an assignment, and of the assignments that he got back, 200 of them were the same reply to now they spread all over the campus, meaning that it is very interesting that all of them have the same answer. My question is then, how do we look at that? And added to that, how do we incorporate the importance of truth and ethics within that space? Thank you.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard that. There are already tools in place that will help that organizations can run these reports through to determine whether students have used generative AI. I suppose it comes down to honesty. I suppose it comes down to the teacher as well, to try and enforce this message that this will not be tolerated, and it will not look good if we notice that you're using a platform like Generative or ChatGPT to determine your answers. That's probably the best answer I can give to that question. Yeah. My forte is really talking about rugby.
Sorry, I'm just follow up on that question. Gillian here. In terms of people putting forth a CV, where does AI fit in there, and what tools are used to check whether what I put forward as let's call it an avatar presentation of myself, whether that is authentic or whether it is made up in cyberspace, and when you meet me, you might fire me the next day.
And when you mean putting forward your CVs?
So you got your first job on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I assume that you did not use AI to present yourself for your first job.
No.
So what is currently in place to allow businesses to ensure that what they look at is an authentic representation of the person applying for the job?
Sure. So we do have filters in place to make sure that the members are genuine, that they're presenting themselves. But just like CVs, there is an honesty component to it. I had this conversation with UCT yesterday where they asked the same question, and I said to the recruiter, this is one of the tasks of being a recruiter. People will embellish their CVs, and they will embellish their LinkedIn.com profiles. And it's up to the recruiter, with some carefully guided questions, to ascertain which experience is real and which experience is not necessarily real. So I think LinkedIn is no different to CVs in that matter.
How is that different from the employee in the workplace to generate an answer? And what is the quality of that and acceptability of that answer in the workplace? Because we encourage our employees to be AI literate and use AI. How is that then different?
Yeah, very, very good question. I don't see a significant difference. But ChatGPT should not replace your own research when you're doing this. ChatGPT will revert to the mean from the data points you've put in. But again, at LinkedIn as well, I use ChatGPT sometimes for researching organizations, but not necessarily for drafting my proposals or my tenders and stuff like that. But I don't see a significant difference between employees or students using ChatGPT. I suppose the way you should assess it is the outcome you're hoping to achieve. Of course, yeah. So,
in your proposal or analysis. So I just want to understand, and maybe we should all understand, how is it different in an academic environment, in a work environment? Because I may be using Excel, the AI tool, for data analysis in the research.
Korea. Franklin, did you have your hand up? Or? Sorry? Okay.
Good.
Yes, this AI is, it's quite concerning. But we're living in a world where information is available. Whether it's in a textbook or whether it's, in cyberspace. And I'm marking for a university with assignments being 100% plagiarized using ChatGPT. But in the workplace or in society, if you don't fully understand knowledge and apply it and analyze it, whether this is actually knowledge that exists, that you can say is 100% correct, then you're failing the test. If I'm coming into the job situation, I might have the AI somewhere available, but I must be able to apply that in the job situation. Now, that is what the education system, now I'm now reflecting on, because I've been long in education, that is where the education system, and I'm telling you, whether from basic education, higher education, there is something wrong. I'm not saying it's failing, otherwise you will say, we're wasting our money on education. Now we find 80% of our learners can't read with meaning, that's okay. But if they can't read for meaning, to make a difference, because when you see information now, educators will give a learner a test. Obviously, if I don't have the answers, I will just go on to ChatGPT. So we've got to have new systems in place. We must bear in mind that the world has changed. I think it was Toffler who said, and I read his book, Future Shock, was his book. We will have illiterate people, and I was still a student at university in 1970. I read about it. And now we're sitting with illiterate people. Now you can define illiterate people in many ways.
Hi, I'm Dale from the Meadow Cyber Academy. And, it's interesting. I think a slide or two back you spoke about leadership, is it? And I'm concerned the world has already moved on. Students are already using ChatGPT, apparently 200 of them getting the same answer. Students in youth already using this tool. I'm concerned about the leadership. I'm concerned about some of the grey hairs in the room that are still maybe resistant to what's happening. So just on your slide, speaking about the posture of leadership in responding to AI, leadership in business and leadership in academics, what should be the posture? Because I think we're grappling, I think we're sort of resistant. I'm saying we because I'm one of the older guys now. And saying, what should we be doing? What are the strategies for adoption that would match our need for employability of youth? Instead of resisting this, what should leadership in South Africa be looking to do to accelerate adoption of AI, to make us globally competitive, instead of spending time maybe resisting and slowing down something that's already disruptive and already focused on, it's already been adopted by so many? That's my question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think this is what Dr. Harlan is doing, is creating festivals like this to share knowledge, to make people aware of the opportunities of AI, to make people aware of AI, to make people aware of the opportunities that having AI skills will create. We saw that only 11% of companies are there. So there is a real opportunity for organizations to move quickly. And then I think, suppose the last pillar of that is to create the learning opportunities for those people. Ideally something that's at scale and something that we can do, for instance, I'm going to plug LinkedIn Learning one more time, to create those learning opportunities.
Hi, thank you for this. My name is Ansel.
Hi.
I've been running a blockchain company since 2019. And I've been building very complex IP business models, integrating AI with blockchain technology. And one of the things that we're doing now is just imagine that you can create a digital ecosystem where an iOS, an IoT infrastructure create verified data that's scanned in the clouds, integrated into the blockchain, interrogated by an AI, automated by ERP, and sold through a digital marketplace. The complexity of the real world, though, will still be dependent on human intervention, which is what we sort of, engage on a day-to-day basis. So use things like systems thinking and action learning to build new causes. But the main thing I think that's important is that we should prevent algo hallucination, meaning, the information we feed into the algorithm will always be driven by the insight and know-how of human beings. So in South Africa, we're talking about earlier, this integration of the formal and informal economies. Somebody was talking about sport earlier on. The data that can be generated in the informal economy can now be stored on the blockchain, verified on the blockchain, kept safe on the blockchain, and you can now use an AI algorithm that's grounded in physical know-how, driven by communities, to interrogate the blockchain so you can come up with tailor-made solutions, whether it's financial solutions where you cut out banks, because banking models are also dying off, or whether it is just using AI algorithms to interrogate that data to come up with new health solutions. So I want to say to everybody, AI is here to stay. And the bottom line is, you either adapt or you die. That's just how it is.